Hi, this is Matt with AppliancePartsPros.com. Today we'll be showing you how to repair your appliance. Remember, anytime you work on an appliance, make sure it's unplugged or the circuit breakers are off so there's no chance of electrocution. Also make sure you turn off your hot and cold water supplies. In this video we're going to show you how to change out the Samsung washer, spider arm assembly, and spider bolt. It's going to be a very easy repair and should only take a few minutes to show you how to do it. If you already have these, great. If not, you can click on the link below or get them at AppliancePartsPros.com. The spider arm assembly and the spider bolts are sold separately, but we're going to show you how to change them both in this video because they're usually changed at the same time. The spider arm uses 6 bolts, but the bolts are sold individually, so make sure you order as many as you need. When you open up the packages, you're going to get the new spider arm assembly and the new spider bolt. The spider arm assembly and the spider bolt is what holds the inner tub in the washer. The main reason to be changing it out is if the spider is cracked or damaged and the inner tub is going out of balance. In order to get to the part, we have to take the washer apart. First thing we're going to do is go around back and take the access panel off with our Phillips screwdriver. There's 1 screw on each side. We're going to take them both out. Once you have both screws out, we can take the panel off. All you have to do is lift up on it so these lower tabs come out. And then you can pull it away from the machine and then pull the upper 2 tabs out. Once you have it off the machine, you can set it aside. Now that we have the back panel off, we're going to disconnect all the wires so we can take the wire harness off the tub. First we'll disconnect these 2. There's a locking tab on this one that you have to press in the center. Once you have it pressed, you can pull down and release the wire harness from the rotor position sensor. On this harness, there's locking tabs on each side, so you have to squeeze them and then pull down on the wiring harness. Now we can follow the wire down and disconnect the water temperature sensor. All you have to do is press the locking tab and separate the 2. Once you have the wire harness disconnected, we can use a Phillips screwdriver to take out the grounding wire screw. Once you have the grounding wire off, we can remove the 2 screws that hold the wire harness bundle to the metal plate. Once you have those screws out, we can take the wire harness and push it out of the way so we don't damage it while we're taking the tub out. Now we're going to take the rotor and the stator off. We're going to put a small screwdriver through this hole right here to hold it while we loosen up the bolt. You want to make sure you don't stick it through one of these other holes and damage your stator inside. Once you have it secure, we're going to grab a 19mm socket with a ratchet and loosen up the nut. Once you have it loose, you can pull the screwdriver out and take the nut off the rest of the way. Once you have the nut off, you can pull that and the 2 washers off and set them aside. Now we can pull the rotor off. All you have to do is grab it from the back side and wiggle it off so the magnets come off the stator. Once you have it off, you can set it aside. To get the stator out, we're going to use a 10mm socket with a long extension to take out all the bolts. As you're taking the last bolt out, you want to make sure you support the stator so it doesn't fall when you're taking it out. Once you have the last bolt out, you can lift it off the machine and carefully set it aside. Now that we have everything off the back, we can go up to the top and use our Phillips screwdriver to take out the screws that hold it on. Now that we have the screws out, we can pull the top off. All you have to do is grab onto the top on each side, pull it back so the lip releases from up front, and then you can lift the top off and set it aside. Now that we have the top off, we can take off these 2 hoses. There's one here at 12 o'clock and one off to the side. This one just has a squeeze clamp on it that you can squeeze with your hand and lift up the hose, and then we can pull the tube off the fitting. Once you have that one disconnected, we can go take the other vent hose off, and we're going to use our Phillips screwdriver to loosen up the clamp. Once you have the clamp loose, we can just pull the hose off the tub fitting and let it hang out of the way. Now that we have the hoses off, we can take the detergent drawer out of the dispenser. We're just going to carefully pull it all the way out till it stops. And then we're going to press this little button right here to unlock it. Then we can pull it out the rest of the way and set it aside. Now that we have the drawer out, we can take the control panel off. We're going to remove these 4 screws with our Phillips screwdriver. Once you have all 4 screws out, you can carefully rotate the console towards the front. And then we can disconnect the 2 wiring harnesses here. To release the wiring harnesses, there's locking tabs that we have to press, and then you can separate the ends. Once you have both wiring harnesses disconnected, you can lift it off the mounting tabs. Once you have it released, you can pull it off the washer and set it aside. Now that we have the control panel off the washer, we're going to go down to the bottom of the front panel on the right hand side and open up the access cover. We're going to take this drain hose out of the clip and just make sure it's off the clip so we can pull the front panel off the washer. Once you have the hose out of the way, we're going to use our Phillips screwdriver to take out the 2 screws that hold the plastic housing to the bulkhead. Once you have the 2 screws out, we can close the access cover, and then we can open up the washer door and take out the door switch. Once you have the door open, we're going to use our Phillips screwdriver to take out the 3 screws that hold the door switch assembly in. Once you have all 3 screws out, we can remove the clamp that holds the door boot seal to the front panel. The clamp is held in by a spring. It's usually located somewhere around 6 o'clock. We're going to use a small flathead screwdriver to get underneath it. And then we can lift the clamp out of the groove all the way around the door boot. Once you have it off, you can pull it out of the washer. With the clamp off, we're going to take the door boot and peel it back and push it into the washer so it's not on the front panel. Once you have it off, we can use the Phillips screwdriver to take out the screws that hold the panel onto the washer. We're going to remove these screws that hold it to the bulkhead. Once you have all the screws out, there's a little tab right here. You may have to lift up on the front of the panel a little bit. So you may have to use the door and grab the front panel by the top of the door boot seal and lift up on it to get it over that tab. And we can slowly let it down. As you lower the front panel down, just want to carefully let the door switch rest and make sure that this hose isn't caught in the housing. Then you can lift it off the support brackets and set it aside. Before we take out any part of the water system, there's a little drain hose in the front. We're going to put a pan underneath and then let any water that may come out drain into it. That way when we take it apart, there'll be less water draining out when you take the hoses off. You may or may not get that much out of there, but you want to drain as much as possible so that when we take it apart, it doesn't leak all over the place. Once you have it drained, you can take the pan out. We have to take off this hose from the door boot seal. We're going to use a pliers to compress the clamp and move it up the hose. Once you have it up and out of the way, we can take the hose off the fitting. If it's on there tight, you can use a small flathead screwdriver to help lift it off. Once you have the hose off the fitting, we can take off the inner door boot seal clamp. To get the clamp off, we're going to use a 7mm socket with a short extension. The head of the clamp is located right up here at 12 o'clock. We're just going to go in here and loosen it up. Once you have the screw loose, it's faster to just grab a Phillips screwdriver and loosen it up all the way that way. Once you have the clamp loose, if it's stuck in the groove and you can't get it out, we can take a small flathead screwdriver and get underneath it and lift it out of the groove so we can pull it off the washer. Once you have it off the groove all the way around, you can pull it off the washer. Now that we have the clamp off, we can pull the door boot seal off the tub. Once you have it off, you can pull it out of the washer. Now that we have the door seal off, we can take the hose off that comes down from the dispenser. We're just going to grab our pliers and compress the clamp. Once you have it compressed, you can slide it up the hose, and then we can pull the hose off the fitting and just kind of tuck it out of the way. Now that we have the hose off, we're going to remove the weights so it's easier to take the tub assembly out. We're going to use a 13mm socket with an extension and a ratchet to take out the bolts. Now that we have the bolts out, you can lift the weight off and set it aside. The other one comes out the same way. Now that we have the weights off, we can remove the air pressure hose for the water level switch. In order to get the air pressure hose off, we're just going to grab these wire ties and untwist them so we can disconnect it from the tub. If you want, you can just leave it on the tub and twist it around itself, so when we come back we can put the hose through it. Now that we have the hose out of the wires, we're going to remove this hose. We're just going to grab the clamp with our pliers and compress it and move the clamp down the hose. And then we can pull the hose off the tub and just push it down and get it out of the way. Then we can use our Phillips screwdriver to remove this screw to take the clamp off. Once you have the clamp off, you can just leave it on the hose, and then we're going to follow the hose down to the other clamp that attaches it to the tub. We're going to use pliers to compress that and move it up the hose. Once you have it moved up, you can reach in and pull the pressure hose off the tub. Once you have it off, you can set it off to the side for later when we put it back together. Once you have the hose off, we can take off the electrical connections for the tank heater. On our model, there's a blue wire on the right. All you have to do is pull these off. There's no locking tabs. If they're on there tight, you can use a pliers or a screwdriver to help pop them off. We got the blue one on the right, the ground wire in the middle, and then the red one on the left. Once you have the wires disconnected from the heating element, we can use our Phillips screwdriver to take the screw out that holds the clamp and the wiring harness to the tub. Once you have that off, you can just set it down, and then we can reach back and take the tub to pump hose off the bottom of the tub. To take the tub to pump hose off, we're just going to reach in with our Phillips screwdriver and loosen up the clamp so we can pull it off the tub. Once you have the clamp loose, you can just pull it off the fitting. Now that we have the hose off the tub, we can take off the shock absorbers. To take out the shock absorbers, there's one located in each corner. All we have to do is take out this bolt and the washer. We're going to use the 13mm socket with the ratchet to take them out. Once you have the bolt and the washer out, you can pull down on the shock absorber and then set it over towards the side of the machine. Now we can do the one on the other side. Now we can go take off the 2 shock absorbers in the back. To get the last shock absorber out, you may have to lift up on the tub a little bit as you pull it down, because the way that it sits now, it pushes the shock absorber forward. Now that we have all the shock absorbers off, we can take the springs off. Now we're back at the top of the washer. We can take the 2 suspension springs off. We're going to start on the dispenser side. For the dispenser one, we're going to have to take the screw out so we can slide the dispenser over a little bit so we can get the spring off the bulkhead. Once you have the screw out, you just want to pull back a little bit and then push this over so we have enough room to pull the spring out. Once you have it free, you can reach in and carefully unhook it from the frame. Once you have it out, you want to carefully lower the tub down, set it on the bottom of the washer. Don't let it drop. You don't want to break anything. And then we can disconnect the spring from the tub, and then we're going to hook it back into its mounting point and leave it there until we put it back together. Once you have the spring back in its mounting place, we're going to set the dispenser assembly back in place. You don't have to put the screw back in, but just put it back in there so it's out of the way. To get the spring off on this side, we have to disconnect these 2 wire harness retainers. All you have to do is untwist them, and then you can pull the wire harness out and get it out of the way. Now that you have the wiring harness out of the way, we have to lift up on the tub in order to get this spring to go more straight down. If it's too far out, it's going to be really hard to unhook from the frame. So if you have to get somebody to help you, you can, and they can lift up on the center lifting point, which will bring the spring more straight down, so then you can unhook it from the frame. Once you have it unhooked, we're going to carefully set the tub down so we don't break anything, and then we can unhook this side from the tub and hook it back into the frame. Now that we have the springs off, we can take the tub assembly out of the machine. All we're going to do is lift it and slide it forward. You want to be careful that you don't drop it on anything and break it, and just slowly work it out. Now that we have the tub assembly out of the washer, we have it supported on a couple wood blocks so that the center is free and it doesn't interfere with the shaft. Anytime you're going to take the washer tub this far apart, you want to make sure that you inspect everything and change anything that's damaged. You also want to make sure that you change the seal, because anytime you take the tub apart, you want a fresh seal when you put it back together. We're not going to show you how to do that in this video because we already have a video showing you how to do that. Once you're ready, you can grab your 10mm socket with a long extension and a ratchet, and we can take out all the screws. Once you have all the screws out, if the top half of the tub won't come out, you may have to go around with a small flathead screwdriver and kind of break the 2 halves apart. Once you have it broken free, you can lift it off and set it aside. Now that we have the tub split in half, we can take the inner tub out. Now, depending upon whether your bearings are seized to the spider shaft or not, you may not be able to lift this out, in which case you may have to turn it over and pound the spider out. We're going to lift ours out and see if it's going to come out. Once you have it out, you can turn it over and set it aside. Now that we have the inner tub out, you can see how damaged the spider is. It's falling apart, and there's all kinds of pieces inside the outer tub. This is how we talked about earlier, that anytime you take this apart, you want to replace any parts that may be failing or failed already. So even though we're in here changing the spider, you would probably want to change your seal. If your bearings can be punched out because they're worn, you can replace those. In this case, the bearings are sold with the outer tub, so if they're bad, you would have to buy the whole back half of the tub. The seal you would have to change, and we're not going to change it in this video, but we are going to clean it up because we already have a repair video showing you how to change it. You want to grab your wave washer and make sure you save that. Now we can take the spider arm assembly off the tub. We have to remove the 6 spider bolts. There's 2 on each arm. We're going to use a 10mm socket with a ratchet to take them out. If one of the bolt heads break off, it's okay. We'll just have to pry up on the spider arm right here to get it off the tub. Now that we have all the spider bolts out, whether they broke off or came out all the way, we have to take the spider arm assembly off the inner tub. You may have to take a screwdriver and get it in between the arm and the tub and kind of lift it out. Ours is broken in 3 places, so we don't have to do that, but you may have to do it if yours is jammed in there. Once you have everything free, you can lift the spider assembly off, and then we can clean up this area so we can put the new one on. Here's the old spider arm assembly and the spider bolts next to the new ones. If you already have these, great. If not, you can get it at appliancepartspros.com. If you're going to reuse any of your spider bolts, you want to make sure you use blue thread locker to lock them in. We're going to replace all 6, and they come pre-coated from the factory. Before you put the new spider arm assembly on, you want to look at the holes where the bolts come through in the tub, and we're going to tap these flat a little bit. You can see that they're pushed in towards the center, kind of countersunk from the bolts being tightened down, and that's going to make the spider arm hard to fit on there. So we're just going to go and tap these down all a little bit so the spider arm will sit down in there like it's supposed to. You only have to tap these in a little bit, and you want to make sure that you're careful and you don't damage the balance ring. Once you're ready, you can set the spider arm assembly down onto the tub and lower it down into place. If it's hung up, you can just tap on it real quick and get it to line up. Once you have the spider arm assembly in place, we can grab the spider bolts and the 10mm socket with the ratchet to tighten them down. Once you have all the spider bolts tightened down, we can put the washer back together. Now we have the back half of the outer tub back up on the supports. We're going to put the washer back in. All you have to do is set the washer in past the seal and set it on the top of the bearing. Once you have the washer in, we can put the inner tub back in. To put the inner tub back in, you want to carefully line it up, making sure that the shaft goes through the center of the seal and you don't hit it. Then you can set it down carefully, don't let it drop. You want to let it slowly get into that water seal. You don't just want to drop it on it. Once you have it in place, we can put the tub assembly back together. Before we put the front half of the tub on, you also want to make sure you look in here for any damage that may have been caused if the inner tub was bouncing around because the spider was broken. Once you're sure it's okay, you can flip it over, and we can put it on. You want to carefully lower it down into place and making sure that the heating element goes into its correct spot. And then on each side there's a little alignment tab that you have to make sure goes in. Once you have those in place, we can put the screws back in to hold the tub together. We're going to use the 10mm socket with the ratchet and the long extension to put the screws in. We're going to put them all in and tighten them down, and then we're going to go one more time around and snug them all down so they're the same tightness. Now that we have the washer tub assembly put back together, we can put it into the washer. If you need to, you can grab somebody and have them help you, so you don't drop it or damage the washer. Once you have it in place, we can start to put the washer back together. Now we can put the first spring on. All you have to do is lift this wiring harness out of the way and lift it off the frame. And then you can hook it into the tub. And then we can lift up on the spring and the tub together and hook the spring into the frame. Once you have the spring hooked into the frame, we're going to put the wiring harness back into the holders. All you have to do is wrap it around and twist these together. Once you have the wiring harness in, we can go put the spring in on the other side. To put the spring on this side, we're going to have to push the dispenser out of the way a little bit, just like before. And then we can reach in and unhook the spring from the frame and hook it into the tub. Once you have the spring hooked into the tub, we can lift up on it and hook it into the frame. Once you have it in the frame, we can slide the detergent dispenser back over, and then we can use a Phillips screwdriver to put the screw in to hold it in place. Now that we have the tub mounted, we can go underneath and put the shock absorbers back on. We can reach in and grab the shock absorber from the sidewall and pull it out so it's aligned with the opening in the tub. Since the tub's just hanging by the springs, you may have to lift up on it to get it to align properly, so you can get the shock absorber in. Once you have the shock absorber in place, you want to make sure it's lined up so the bolt will go through. You can stick a small screwdriver through. And when we took the bolts out, there was some blue thread locker on there, so you want to make sure you put some fresh stuff on before you put the bolts back in. Once you have the bolt started, we can grab our 13mm socket with the ratchet and tighten it down. Now that we have this one in, we can go do the other three. They're all done the same way. Now we can go to the ones in the front. On the front, we're going to add an extension so it reaches back and we can tighten it down. Now that we have the shock absorbers back on, we can go underneath and reconnect the tub to pump hose to the tub. We got the inside of the hose and the tub fitting wet to make it easier to slide on. So all you have to do is grab it and push it up onto the fitting. Once you have it all the way up, you can slide the clamp up. Once you have the clamp in place, we can reach in with our Phillips screwdriver and tighten it down. To hook up the wires to the heater, we're just going to grab the wiring harness, and remember the red was on the left, the green was in the middle, and the blue was on the right. Once you have the wires hooked up to the heater, we can reattach this clamp that holds the wire harness to the tub. We're going to use our Phillips screwdriver to put it in. Once you have the wire harness mounted, we can reattach the air pressure hose. To hook up the air pressure hose, we're going to grab it from the side of the machine and pull it over so we can put it onto the fitting. All you have to do is line it up and press it on. Once you have it on all the way, we can grab our pliers and move the clamp up so we get a good seal. All you have to do is compress it, slide it up. And then we can use our Phillips screwdriver to put in the screw that holds the clamp to the tub. Once you have that installed, we can put in the hose that goes from the pump up to the tub. To put this hose on, we're just going to grab it and line it up on the tub. There's a little arrow right here on the tub that has to line up with the notch on the hose. So all you have to do is press it on so it's lined up. Once you have it in place, we can grab our pliers and move it up. Once you have the hose installed, we can resecure the air pressure hose with the wire ties. We're just going to untwist these wire ties, and then we can wrap them around the air pressure hose and twist them together so it's secure. You want to make sure it goes right where the protective cover is. Once you have the lower one in place, we can follow it up and do the upper one. Once you have the air pressure hose secure, we can reattach the dispenser to tub hose. To put the hose onto the tub, you want to make sure that this tab is lined up in between those two marks when you push it on. Once you have it in place, we can grab our pliers and move the clamp up so we get a good seal. Once you have the clamp in place, we can put the door boot seal on. To put the door boot seal on, you want to make sure that this fitting is at the top, and these two pointers are right at around 11 o'clock or so. And we have to make sure that this ridge right here goes in this groove all the way around the outer lip of the tub. Once you have it started, you want to make sure that the little tabs are pointed right at the center of the screw. If you have to, you can slide it one way or another. That way it's lined up with the water guide in the back. Then we can work the door boot seal on the rest of the way around the tub. Once you have it on all the way, you want to come down and look at the bottom half right here. There's this little lip right here that has to go in between the inner and the outer tubs, and you want to make sure that's in there properly all the way around the bottom half of the door boot seal. Once you're sure you have it in there correctly, we can put the clamp on to hold it to the tub. To put the clamp on, you want to make sure that the screw is up at 12 o'clock, and then we can make sure it goes in the groove all the way around the seal. Once you have it in the groove, we're going to use the Phillips screwdriver to take up all the slack, and just like when we took it off we use the 7mm socket with the ratchet to tighten it down. Once you have the clamp tightened down, you want to grab the door boot seal and give it a few pulls all the way around. You want to make sure it's not going to come off when you do a load of laundry. Once you're sure you have the clamp tight, you can push the hose onto the top of the door boot seal. Once you have the hose pressed down all the way, we're going to grab our pliers and move the clamp down so we get a good seal. Now that we have the clamp moved down, we can put the weights back onto the tub. All you have to do is set them onto the mounting pegs, and then we can put the bolts back in. When we took the bolts off, we noticed that there was some blue thread locker on there. So before we put these all back in, we're going to recoat the threads so they don't vibrate out. Once you have it started by hand, we can grab the 13mm socket with an extension and the ratchet and tighten them down. Once you have the bolt in, we can put the weight on the other side. Now that we have the weights reattached, we can put the front panel back on the washer. In order to put the front panel on, you just want to line it up so that it sits onto the 3 tabs. Once you have it in place, you want to make sure that the drain hose goes into the housing here. Once you have the hose in there, you can carefully lift up the panel. Before you lift the front panel up all the way, you want to make sure that your door switch wire harness is still in the clip. And then we're going to lift the switch assembly up and put it up here so when we close the door, it's right where it's supposed to be when we get ready to mount it. Once you have that in place, we can lift the door up. You may have to push the wiring harness in a little bit, and then we can lift the panel all the way up. And this locking clip should hold it, but you want to make sure you keep a hand here while we put in a couple screws to hold the front panel. Once you have the screws on the top, we can go to the bottom of the panel and put the screws in by the access cover. We're going to open up the door, and we're going to use the Phillips screwdriver to put the 2 screws in to hold the housing to the bulkhead. Once you have the screws in, you can clip the drain hose in, and then we can close the access cover. Now we can push the door boot seal out of the way and reach in and grab the door switch assembly and line it up. Once you have it in place, you can hold it while we grab our Phillips screwdriver and put the screws in to hold it in place. Now that we have the door switch mounted, we can put the boot seal onto the front panel. You have to make sure that you put this rib right here into this groove all the way around the front panel, and then we can put the clamp on to secure it in place. Once you have the boot seal on the front panel, we can put the clamp on. To put the clamp on, you want to make sure that the spring is down at 6 o'clock. And then we're going to work the clamp around into the groove clockwise until you get over here till about 1 o'clock where you can't get it to go any farther. We're going to take our locking pliers and grab it, and then we want to pull towards the outside of the machine. If you pull towards the front, it's just going to come out of the groove. Now that we have the clamp on, we can close the washer door and put the console back on the washer. To put the console back on, we're going to align it so the 2 support tabs go into the front panel, And then we can lift it up a little bit so we can connect the two wiring harnesses. To connect the harnesses, all you have to do is press them together so they lock together and get a good connection. Once you have them both hooked up, we can rotate the console up the rest of the way. Once you have the console in place, we can use the Phillips screwdriver to put the screws in. Now that we have the console installed, we can put it in the detergent drawer. To put the drawer in, we're just going to line it up onto the rails and slide it all the way back until it stops and locks in. Now that we have the detergent drawer reinstalled, we're on the back of the washer. We're going to put the stator on. All you have to do is lift it up and line it up. So this is at the top, like wire connectors over here at like 4 or 5 o'clock. And set it in place. And you're going to have to hold it while you put in one of the bolts to hold it down so we can put in all the rest of the bolts. Once you have it secure enough, you can let go. And then we're going to grab our ratchet with the 10mm socket in the extension and put the bolts in and tighten them down. Now that we have the stator mounted, we can reach in and grab the wiring harness. And then we're going to use our Phillips screwdriver to put in the 2 screws that hold the wire harness to the metal plate. Once you have those in, then we can put in the ground wire screw. It goes over here by the little ground point. Then we can connect the wiring harnesses to the rotor position sensor. All you have to do is line these up and snap them in so they lock in. Then we can reconnect the temperature sensor wire harness. All we have to do is plug that together so it locks into place and we get a good connection. Now that we have the wiring harness reinstalled, we can put the rotor back onto the stator. To put the rotor on, all you have to do is line it up so the shaft comes out through the middle. Once you have the rotor in place, we can put the washers in. Remember, there was a flat washer, a locking washer, and then the nut to hold it all on. Once you have it tightened down as far as you can go, remember we have to put a small screwdriver through this hole in the rotor and lock it into the stator so we don't damage the stator, but we can use it to hold it while we tighten down the nut. We're going to tighten it down with a ratchet and a 19mm socket. Once you have it tightened down, we can put the back panel of the washer on. To put the panel on, you just have to lift it up so the upper tabs go in. And then you can push the bottom half in and lower it down so the lower tabs go in. Once you have it in place, we can use the Phillips screwdriver to put the screws in. Now we're back on the top of the washer. We're going to hook up the last 2 hoses. Got the small one on the top and the big one over here. To put the one on the top on, all you have to do is push it back down so it bottoms out against the tub. And then we can use the squeeze clamp, squeeze it together and just move it all the way down so we get a good seal. For the bigger vent hose up here, we're just going to line it up and push it back down into place. Make sure it goes all the way down. Once you have it all the way down, you want to make sure that the clamp is all the way down around it. And then we can use our Phillips screwdriver to tighten it down. Once you have the clamp tightened down, we can put the top back on the washer. When you're putting the top on, you want to make sure you set it back far enough so that this little cutout goes onto the post, and then we can push it forward and lock it into place. So all you have to do is set it down far enough, and then you may have to press down on each side to make sure those engage, and then press it all the way in so the front goes into the control panel. Once you have it in place, we can use our Phillips screwdriver to put the screws in to hold the top down. Now that we have the washer put back together, you can plug it back in, turn the water back on, and take it for a spin. Thanks for joining us for another successful repair brought to you by AppliancePartsPros.com. Check out our other repair videos on our site, Facebook, and YouTube.